Good afternoon. It's time to welcome Seb Barnett to the stage for this month's topic on shamanism. I believe, what do we have this month? The 3 layers of reality? All right, come on up, Seb. Get it underway.
Got the tall person microphone again. All right. There we go. All right. As previously stated, I'm Seb. Hope you all had a great 4th of July. I had an epic 4th of July. It was wonderful. And I am the owner of Green Stag Spirit Work. I provide healing work and courses on shamanism that are online that go right to your email box. It's really awesome. And I also have things available for your spiritual practice on my website. If you're interested, I have business cards down on that table. There's also a place where you can sign up for an email list and papers about 2 of our courses. So today I'm going to be talking about the 3 layers of reality, and every month, the first Saturday of the month at 2 p.m., I'll be here at Soul Food Books. We got an excellent little partnership going on where I come and talk about shamanism on the first Saturday of every month. So I hope if you like this one that you guys will be back for another one. So, with shamanism, it's really hard to find really reliable, consistent things because shamanism is a broad term used for people in hunter-gatherer tribes, what their spiritual practice is. That is cultures from all over the world. So it's very difficult to narrow it down and be like, so this is what shamanism is. It's always like this. But I like how open-ended and mutable and how different all these perspectives are on this basic spiritual practice. So in some cultures, they consider reality to be made up of like 11 layers or 5 layers or 23 layers or 3 layers, and it just depends on what culture of shamanism they're practicing. And for me, as someone who practices shamanism without a cultural background, because I'm just a white American, and I don't have a lot of connection to my own ancestry, and honestly, it's very hard to find solid information about Celtic shamanism, which does exist. And so I look through all these different cultures trying to find what is the most basic, what is the easiest to practice. And I found that in all these cultures, the fewest amount of layers of reality there was 3. So I was like, all right, that sounds great. I like the number 3. This is going to work out awesomely. So from there, I started studying the 3 layers of reality. So with layers of reality, we want to think of things like a layer cake or something where there's frosting in the middle. There might be different flavors. They're different things. They're not touching. But the layers of reality don't work that way. The layers of reality are intermeshed and intertwined, and they're overlapping constantly. They're all part of each other. So in that way, we can't separate them out and say, oh, this is when you're in this layer. This is when you're in that layer. These things don't interact or coincide. So they're all like intermeshed and part of each other. In the same way that we have a physical body, we're emotional people, and we have a mental process. All of those things come together, combine to make us who we are. Any one of those things, if we were without them, we would not be the same person. So in the same way, reality is made out of 3 layers. A physical layer, an energetic layer, and a spiritual layer. In the same way that we have a physical presence, our bodies, an energetic presence, our emotions, and a spiritual layer, which has to do with the mental and spiritual thought processes. The physical layer is the most easy for me to describe. It's probably the most easy for you guys to, or the most familiar for everyone to wrap their heads around. And it's the things that we physically interact with every day. Even if those things are not tangible things that we can grab onto and hold, there's ways of describing them physically and interacting with them, like gases and air and all sorts of fun stuff, vapors. Those are in the physical layer of reality. The energetic layer, we start getting a little bit more complicated. I think of each one of these layers as being, as working off of each other. So we have the physical layer, which is sort of the cornerstones, the foundation of reality. And from there, you have the energetic layer. So everything that is physical has energy also, which shows up on an energetic layer of reality. The energetic layer gets referred to in a lot of different ways. I like calling it the energetic layer because it's the most simple, it's the most easy to define. But some people call it the auric layer or the etheric layer, things like that. And to me, the energetic layer is so nice and simple and concise. It's not a made-up word or a word from another language. It really helps me to be able to say exactly what it is and for other people to be able to understand me. So the energetic layer is everything that's in physical reality as an energetic blueprint, including ourselves, including animals and plants and furniture, buildings, rocks and trees. Everything's there. Everything that's in the physical reality also exists in the energetic layer. But there's more. So also on the energetic layer, there is some things that used to be physical and their energy is still left behind. So their energy traces are still here. In some ways, this is like ghosts and spirits of different things, and energy dissipates over time. So it's not permanent, it's not fixed. It needs more energy to keep going and keep being here. But it's really lovely on the energetic layer is where our own energy signature is, and that's where the energy signature of like a whole bunch of things are, including the spirits of plants and animals and spirits of wind and the air, spirits of all sorts of wonderful things that we can interact with, spirits of tables and chairs. I consider myself an animist to a fault, so everything to me has a spirit that can be interacted with. Couches, spoons, places, mountains. I get to talk to all of them. It's wonderful. So sometimes things leave an energetic trace, even though they're physically not there anymore. So there's no physical being there anymore. And that becomes, if it continues to have a energetic food source, that becomes a spirit that can be relied on for different things. Like a lot of times those spirits become protector spirits of places. Like a forest might have a spirit that's a compilation of spirits of things that were physical, that passed away and became part of the overall forest spirit as the nutrients from their decomposing bodies was reabsorbed. That might be an ancestor of yours that you spend a lot of time with. Like if you have a picture of somebody who passed away in your family on your altar, and you give them a little gift every week, that's a way that you're energetically feeding them because you're thinking about them, you're caring about them. Even the ways that we say little prayers and we think about people helps energetically keep them around. And that gives those beloved spirits even more ability to stay around and help us out. Stuff on the energetic layer is actually really nice also for other reasons, because on the physical layer you have to have a lot of the physical materials are very hard to change very much. And on the energetic layer, it's really easy to change things. So on the physical layer, we have to have, like, for me, I love woodworking, so I need my chisels, I need my hammer, I need my saw, I need stuff like that. It takes me a lot of time and effort to change a physical piece of wood to be in a different shape and a different form. And on an energetic layer, it's a lot of fun because it's easier to change things with intention, with ritual, with how we interact with them and how we think about them. There's more mutability there, but usually it takes an interaction of some sort. Otherwise, they're just slowly dissipating over time as new things come in. And then we have another layer on top of that, which is the spiritual layer. So in the same way that we have our physical body, which represents the physical layer and is in the physical layer. We have our emotions and our energy, which is on the energetic layer. Then we also have the spiritual layer. The spiritual layer is a really bizarre place because we have everything that's in physical reality, everything that has ever been in physical reality, things that people thought were in physical reality but weren't. Because in the spirit world and in the spiritual layer, things that have been thought of become something. Like, the spiritual layer is the layer for ideas and concepts, and in that way, there's a lot more spirits and a lot more mutable mythological ideas also, which is way too much fun. There's too many good things there. It's just so awesome when you get to the point of being able to go to the spiritual, well, when you get to the point of being able to direct your consciousness towards being in the spiritual layer. Because here's the trick. You can't go to the spirit world. You can't go to the spiritual layer. You can't go to the energetic layer. Why not? You're already there. You're already there. Your body's already there. Your energetic layer is already there. It's like saying that you have to get your body out of the physical plane. Like, it can't happen. It just can't. And so when we use shamanism to go to these different layers of reality, we're paying attention really consciously to a layer of reality. That's what's going on. It's not that we're traveling anywhere in particular. We're not leaving anything. We're simply turning our attention to a different area where we already exist. It's kind of like when you eat something and you're not paying attention. You're like, yeah, I'm eating the food. I'm eating the food. It's totally cool. And then you sit down and you really pay attention because you found this amazing food and it's really awesome. And when you pay attention and you slowly chew and you savor your food, then suddenly you realize all the layers of complexity in that particular kind of food. In the same way, when we turn our attention through meditation and through altered states to these different layers, we can really notice things in grand detail. and experience what's already going on. So in the spiritual layer, we got everything that's in the physical reality, everything that's been in the physical reality, everything in the physical reality that's been thought of. And we also have some really strange ways that these manifest in the spiritual reality. Because the spiritual reality and the spiritual layer is a place of ideas and concepts. It's a place of symbolism. And in the way that, like, Salvador Dali would paint all these strange things that were about something else. Like, they were about different psychological states, they were about his dreams, they were about different events in his life. So in the same way, you go into the spirit world, and what is you as one person in the physical reality, what is you as one person in the energetic layer, becomes represented in a really complicated way in the spirit world, because you have so many ideas and concepts that make you as a human being. It takes a lot more to define who you are in the spirit world. So what happens in the spirit world is that a place will represent one person. And I like to call that place your personal landscape. It's a big place. Some people like to call it the sacred garden. And it's a place that can change and mutate and adapts as you interact with the rest of the world and the rest of your life. But it's got some nice, solid foundations, some parts of your personality that very rarely change. This is a wonderful place in the spiritual layer to go if you want to change habits of yourself, if there's ways that you're being that are not working, if there's ways that your thought process is slowing you down in your own life. And when you change things in the landscape on the spiritual layer, it changes who you are on an energetic layer, and it changes who you are on a physical layer too. Not very dramatically, like you can't suddenly make your eyes green instead of blue by changing things in the spiritual reality. But there are definitely things in your behavior that you can change, and the way that your body moves, and the way that you interact with the world around you. So, one of the core practices of shamanism is to be able to use meditation and altered states to go to these different layers of reality. And that includes the physical reality, to pay attention very closely and very acutely to what's going on physically. And on the energetic level of being able to pay attention and hear and listen to the spirits as they speak to us energetically. Because most spirits, very few of them can be manifest in such a way that we can see them, feel them, or hear them in a physical way. So most of them communicate with us through energy. And that can come across by how you feel when you go into a room, ways that your hair stands up on end, maybe your ears start ringing. That's one of my favorite ones. Other ones I really like, my eyes will start watering randomly, and I'll be like, oh, I really wish they would pick some other way of interacting with me so that my ears weren't ringing and my eyes weren't watering. This is ridiculous. Everyone is slightly different, and so when spirits interact with people, it always shows up slightly differently for each person. And that's a good thing to pay attention to. Like, You have to figure out and gauge what your own reaction to things energetically being different and shifting are. In the same way, we can go into the spiritual layer and interact with the spiritual layer. The spiritual layer is wonderful because it's a great place to learn different shamanic techniques or spiritual techniques in the spiritual layer. There's just such a wealth of wisdom there, and it's played out in such a way that you can see it through visions, through the mind's eye, and interact with things through that way of being. And when you change things there, it does impact physical reality. And when you learn things there and bring those practices back, it changes the way you live and the way you interact with other people around you and the way you treat yourself. It's a wonderful place to go if you're looking for wisdom, if you're looking to connect with your ancestors, if you're looking to figure out more of what your own spiritual path is. If you want to understand more about how the elements come together in a spiritual way, it's just a wonderful place to learn and interact and adventure in a way. There's many amazing spirits to be met there, cultural spirits, spirits of plants and animals that you can also interact with on the energetic plane. They're also represented in the spiritual layer. I'm sorry I keep throwing around plane and layer. I'm trying to get my brain to go into this habit of saying layer instead of plane, and it's still fighting me. Need to go into my personal landscape and change that. There's some spiritual paths and some ways of living that people talk about focusing on one of these spiritual layers. And in my own experience and from the people that I've interacted with that I respect the most, there is the ones that I really respect the most and the ones who have the most solid spiritual practice that I've seen, those people have a focus on all three layers. I do not think that one is better than another or one is more worthy of focus than another. It's about balance. It's about knowing who we are on all these different levels of being. It's about knowing that we are part of all of these things. And because we're physical creatures and in the physical world, it may be that we focus a little bit too much on that as it is in our own day-to-day life, and we need to balance that out with more energetic and spiritual practices. But at the same time, it can be just as easy for somebody to focus more on an energetic layer or more on a spiritual layer than the physical layer, and then they become disconnected and disoriented in a physical world where we need to be present, because this world needs us to interact with it and take care of it and be here with it. This world needs us to look after and take care of each other and take care of each other, to interact in a considerate way. And we do that by paying attention to all three. And from my own experience, I've found the most satisfaction by paying attention to all three of these layers, by working on my own self-development, by helping other people to bring their attention to these different layers. It's the most satisfying way to live. Not that I'm really old enough to have experienced very many ways of living, but from that perspective, from my short 33 years, And usually the way that we have these concepts of shamanism that might be a little bit twisted by some anthropological translations. Like there's some really old anthropological translations of what people were doing in hunter-gatherer tribes when they're just recording what they could see. They're just recording things from a physical reality place, and they're saying, oh, these people practicing shamanism, they're taking all these substances to go these other planes. And they looked over and missed the fact that so many of these people were meditating, they were doing all sorts of physical stretches and interactions with the world around them. There were so many other things they were doing. They're meditating, they're praying, they're talking to the spirits, and they're doing all those things, reacting and interacting with other layers of reality. So, and then every now and then, they would have some ethnogens, which are psychotropic substances that change your view of reality and bring it to different layers. They would have some ethnogens, and that's what the anthropologists focused on, was that part, because it was the most obvious to them. But there was all these other layers of ways they were interacting with these, the energetic layer and the spiritual layer. So, with my own spiritual practice and the way that I encourage other people to practice is to focus on meditation, to focus on speaking with spirits, to setting up for having a kind and considerate relationship with the spirits around them and with the other people around them, because we need to honor everything and take care of each other. And in that way, you have a more stable and consistent spiritual practice with shamanism and a more consistent and regular spiritual connection to these other layers. Substances can be helpful in really extreme cases, but for the most part, I find that they're distracting more than helping anyone focus. They tend to bring up so much of the mind's own babble that it doesn't help you get to an objective goal in the short term. So, meditation, exercise, being present, those are very, very important things. Prayer and ways of speaking of the spirits. Those are the most solid ways of interacting with these different layers of reality. And paying attention to when you eat. So, that's my little talk on the layers of reality. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to come up and ask me. And as previously stated, if you're interested, grab a business card or grab one of the flyers I have a course on meditation that gets sent to your email every day. And they have, nope, not every day, once a week. I'm full of lies. And then there's a course that's on energy work, interacting with the energetic layer, that gets sent to your email once a week. And there's a flyer for that out on the table too. And if you're interested, it would be great if you signed up for the email list. And I only send one email a month, just one. So, thank you very much for having me.